A recent string of murders has planted the seed of societal collapse here on Ravnica. How did this get so out of hand? And who could be behind it? Well, worry not, because all will soon be made clear. In fact, the mastermind is here with us in this very room. That's right, one of these Ravnicans is responsible for everything. And I, Detective Alquist Proft, will prove it. It's quite simple, really.
Welcome back to the cityscape of Ravnica. You'll need all your wits about you to unravel the mystery that's been building here. Crack puzzles, collect evidence, and identify suspicious individuals in order to discover who is behind the series of grisly murders throughout the plane. The brilliant detective Alquist Proft recently announced that he has discovered the guilty party and invited everyone involved in the investigation to join him for the reveal. But which of them did it? We will go over the events so far and attempt to discover the killer before Detective Proft can unveil the truth. Our story began in the wake of the Phyrexian invasion. When Phyrexia attacked, most of the Ravnican guilds united to repel the assault. With Phyrexia defeated, Ravnica has been eager to get back to normal. And what better way to demonstrate that the people's spirits remain unbroken than a big shindig at Karlov Manor? The host of the event was Teysa Karlov, guild leader, legendary aristocrat, and scion of the powerful Karlov family. During the Phyrexian invasion, she saved many lives by supplying key intelligence about the advancing armies, and so who could begrudge her for throwing a well-deserved party? Everyone who is anyone was there, and everyone else was trying to get in. One featured guest was an old Orzhov friend of Teysa's, heroine planeswalker Kaya. Since the Phyrexian defeat, Kaya has found herself back in her old stomping grounds. Reluctantly attending the party, she assessed the scene, looking for any reason to make her escape. In addition to celebrating a return to normalcy, the Karlov Manor party served to cement a new status quo by hosting members of the Ravnican Agency of Magicological Investigations. The agency are a fresh force in Ravnican society, established to make sure that guild politics don't affect the investigation of actual crimes, or at least that they affect them less. One of the members of the agency is rookie investigator Kellen. He is eager to follow the clues wherever they may lead him. The night proceeded as planned, the party's opulence drowning the recent woes of Ravnica in splendor and excess. But the festivities were interrupted when a body was found sprawled in the cloakroom on a pile of coats. It was the leader of the Simic Guild, Zagana. The party was immediately awash in suspicion. As luck would have it, Alquist Proft, Ravnica's self-styled great detective, was on the scene as well, ready to investigate any clues that might have been left behind. Investigate is a returning mechanic that immerses you in the feeling of being a detective and will have you digging deeper into the goings-on. It enables you to create a clue token, which is a colorless artifact token that you can sacrifice in order to draw a card. Proft quickly realized two things. One, the seemingly random coats underneath Zagana display the insignias of each of the guilds, not a clue so much as an anti-clue or a pile of red herrings. But he also noticed that someone was wearing Selesnian colors without the appropriate sigil, a disguise. The new disguise mechanic imbues the game with a sense of mystery. Anything could be hiding under your opponent's upturned cards. Disguise allows you to cast cards face down, hidden so no other player knows what it is. Pay 3 to cast this spell, and it becomes a 2/2 creature with Ward 2 and no other abilities. You may turn it face up anytime you have priority by paying its disguise cost. This happens immediately, doesn't use the stack, and can't be responded to. That 2/2 creature your opponent thought was safe to block is actually an angel, perfect to fly over for some free lifelink. But before Proft could pull the mysterious guest aside, her true identity was revealed.
Itrada is obviously guilty of the murder, and yet has no memory of killing Zagana. Clearly, the roots of this case go much deeper than I initially suspected.
Kaya was ready to leave the plane she once called home, but was summoned back to the scene of the crime at Karlov Manor. Teysa claimed to have something important to tell her, but by the time Kaya arrived, Teysa's body was already cold. Another murder. Kaya discovered a note written in Teysa's hand, but the script was Phyrexian. Was Teysa working for them? And could there be another murderer on the loose? With these unanswered questions spurring her on and a dead friend to put to rest, Kaya took on the case. Cases are a new mechanic that allow you to experience the different steps as a mystery unfolds, just as a detective would. Cases are quest-like enchantments with 3 abilities. The top ability is always active, the middle is a condition to solve the case, and the bottom a reward once you've solved it. Back at the agency, Kaya and Kellen bumped into Agris Koss, who was one of Boros' best investigators when he was alive. Things hadn't changed much now that he's dead. Reluctantly assisting in the agency's investigation, he was prepared to catch any person suspected of foul play. Suspect is another new mechanic which allows you to cast your well-honed detective eye at any creatures that looks like they might be up to no good. Suspected is a label that can be applied to a creature. A suspected creature has menace and can't block. Once suspected, a creature remains suspected until it leaves the battlefield or another effect causes it to no longer be suspected. Kaya and Kellen, beginning their investigation, went to speak to Judith of the Rakdos. Judith was present the night of the Karlov Manor party. Kaya was surprised she was even invited, and more surprised to learn that Judith had a disagreement with Teysa before her murder. Judith insisted that she was innocent, but did inform the detectives that they didn't have the whole story. She pointed them to the original guild pact at Vitu-Ghazi and promised that it would clarify things. Meanwhile, Croft had decided to go about things a little differently.
I have a new and unlikely partner, Itrada. After all, who would be more motivated to clear her name? And it helps to have an assassin on my side as I untangle this thicket of clues and false leads.
Itrada and Alquist headed to the last place she remembered being before waking up at the party, one of her assassin-friendly hiding places. They discovered a fine yellow-gray powder dusting her bedside table and pillowcase, their first major piece of evidence. Collect evidence is another new mechanic. You can solve a mystery in your head, but nothing is as important as hard evidence when bringing the guilty to justice. To collect evidence, exile any number of cards from your graveyard with the total mana value of the indicated number or greater. Some cards even unlock alternative effects when entering the battlefield, if evidence was collected. As Alquist pondered the meaning of the powder, he was attacked by Massacre Girl, an infamous Rakdos assassin. Thanks to Itrada, Massacre Girl was sent packing. But who would have hired her to kill Croft, and why? Kaya and Kellen headed out into the wilderness, or as close as Ravnica gets to wilderness, to see the new literal resting place of Vitu-Ghazi as the giant tree recovers from the battle with the Phyrexians. Kaya and Kellen were stopped in front of their destination by Tolsimir and his wolf Voya. Tolsimir seemed standoffish and on edge, almost as though he and his pointy-toothed companion had something to hide. But after a couple of tense moments, he agreed to lead our intrepid investigators inside Vitu-Ghazi. Trostani, the Dryad Guild Master of the Selesnya Conclave, have roots that tangle with the living wood of Vitu-Ghazi, so that the two seem inextricable. Trostani was once 3 Dryads, Sim representing harmony, Oba representing life, and Ses representing order. Now all are united with each other and the World Tree. They pointed the investigators towards the guild pact they sought. The investigators learned that the cult of Rakdos was founded and bound to Rakdos in the hope that it would prevent him from his practice of instilling murderous rage into random citizens. That sure sounds like what happened to Itrada. Itrada and Alquist headed to see Kylox the Inventor, hoping he might be able to shed some light on the mysterious powder. Alquist had some suspicions about what that substance had to do with murders, and knew that only an advanced scientific mind could help him get to the bottom of it. But when he and Itrada arrived at Kylox's lab, they found it in a state of turmoil. Alquist combed through the ransacked lab for clues and discovered a secret disguised hatch that led underneath the lab. Kylox must have tried to escape. Alquist and Itrada followed the path only to find the missing Kylox working furiously in a secret office. Before they had a chance to discuss the powder, a group of goblins broke in to capture the artificer. Alquist and Itrada were able to quickly hide from being taken themselves, but managed to follow the group to somewhere on Tin Street. They discovered that Krenko, another suspect who felt that he was the one in danger, was behind Kylox's kidnapping. Krenko believed that Kylox's secret research was the key to the recent spate of murders. As if on cue, yet another brainwashed Ravnican made an attempt on Krenko's life. But his aim fell short, and instead of Krenko, Karlov was killed.
We managed to rouse the murderer from his stupor. He was confused and horrified. He claimed to have been at the flower shop, and then suddenly here he was assassinating a scientist he had never even heard of. How curious.
At this point in the investigation, it was clear that victims were piling up at an alarming rate. What had started as a search for Zagana's killer had now spiraled into something much more wide-ranging and insidious. Teysa and Karlov had both been murdered in cold blood, and there were more bodies to come. As Proft and Etrata were contemplating the scope of this case, across town, the agency informed Kaya and Kellen that Teysa's killer had been captured, a low-level hitman with no memory of the attack. And the bad news kept coming. Since she last crossed paths with Proft, Massacre Girl had attempted to murder Aurelia, killing 10 of her soldiers in the process. Massacre Girl, echoing the other killers so far, said she didn't know why she attacked Aurelia. Aurelia would not accept this answer. She gave Kaya and Kellen 24 hours to solve the case, or she'd march the Legion to war against the cult of Rakdos, almost certainly plunging Ravnica back into chaos. They were so close to finding the truth, but now the pressure was on. Elsewhere, Proft and Etrata were in Golgari territory in the Undercity, hunting down Izoni. Proft had noticed her spiders in Etrata's cell, and again in Karlov's underground lab. Clearly, Izoni was keeping tabs on the case. But why? Once found, Izoni denied any wrongdoing, but was able to confirm for them what Karlov could not. Whatever the powder they found is, it is not from Ravnica.
I know who the killer is. Obvious, really, when you think about it. I'll reveal all in front of a group of interested parties, including the culprit. You'll just have to join me at Vitu-Ghazi to learn the truth.
So, given what we know, who has Proft identified as the killer? Who had the motive and the means? Teysa hosted the party during which the first murder occurred. She could have let in the killer, but she ended up a victim herself, and she appears to have had something to hide about the Phyrexian invasion. While she might have been involved somehow, we can rule her out as the main culprit. Etrata was clearly the one who murdered Zagana, but at the same time, she had no memory of the event itself. And she assisted Proft in gathering further clues. Is she the murderer, playing a long and complicated game, or just the murder weapon? Judith had her own quarrel with Teysa, though she claims it was minor. But she also knew about the guild pact with Rakdos. Is it possible she's involved in the murders, or does she have her own cunning plan? Massacre Girl is, as the name implies, a known killer. She not only attempted to knock off Alquist Proft, but also attacked Aurelia. Is she, like Etrata, an unwitting pawn for someone else? Or is something more sinister going on beneath that not-so-innocent smile? Karlov felt threatened for the secret projects he was working on, but didn't reveal what those were while he was alive. Is it possible it had something to do with the powder that Proft found? Either way, his death rules him out as a suspect. Krenko was convinced he was next on the murderer's hit list, and he was attacked by one of the brainwashed assailants. But they ended up killing the very scientist Krenko had just had kidnapped. Is it possible that he was behind the murders and used the attack on himself to dispose of an enemy and waylay suspicion? Massacre Girl's attack on Aurelia gave her the perfect pretext to launch an all-out war. But what if she was the one helping the murders along in order to establish a call for war that no one could question? Still, it seems unlikely that such a righteous figure would be so underhanded as to stoop to murder. Agris was a beacon of justice in his life, but called back into the service by the Boros Legion, he disappeared without telling anyone his intentions. Could he be hiding something? Agris had no motive. He was only aiding in the investigation, a ghost just looking to retire. He was clearly not involved. We can rule him out. Could Trostani be involved? They seem innocent, but their guild has been through much turmoil as a result of the Phyrexian invasion. Could it have unbalanced the Dryads in some way? turning a healthy tree into something twisted and gnarled beyond recognition. And even if they didn't act directly, they are connected to another of our suspects. Several of the mesmerized Ravnican assailants had vestiges of fur on their robes, a possible sign that they were working for Tolsimir and his mount, the Great Wolf Voya? Izoni had eyes on each phase of the investigation. Etrata's cell, Kylox's lab. Was she just keeping tabs like she said, or trying to remain one step ahead of an investigation she knew would lead to her? Or perhaps we should look more closely at the great detective at the center of this web. He has been at almost every crime scene, and this murder spree has burnished his reputation. Is he working both sides of this case?
This case was a tricky one. It seemed easy to solve at first. Of course, Etrata killed Zagana. We practically caught her red-handed. I witnessed Kylox's death, but the attacker surrendered without a fight. Someone had to be pulling the strings all along. So I called everyone here because I knew that the perpetrator was among you and that they wouldn't be able to resist taking me out before I exposed them. As I had hoped, while speaking with Kaya moments ago, a flower grew from the wall and attempted to dose her with what appears to be mind control pollen, triggering my demise. Thanks to Izoni's help, we knew that this powder was not something we've ever seen here. This was the final piece of evidence I needed. The killer is none other than Oba, the central member of Trostani. Only Trostani has the power to create a new form of life like this. Any plant in the city was able to be used as a delivery system for the pollen. So, that's the method and the means. As for motive, each of the people Trostani killed or tried to kill was involved with the Phyrexian invasion. Teysa was communicating with them, though I'm told she was actually acting as a double agent for the benefit of Ravnica. Kranko profited off the war, and Zagana was experimenting with Phyrexian oil. No one was more damaged by the Phyrexian invasion than Trostani, emissaries of all living things on this plane. And so, no one had a motive for murder like them.
So there we have it. Oba, the central member of Trostani, was behind the plot, and Alquist Proft, with our help, managed to put the pieces together. But the larger mystery has just begun. There are so many more puzzles to solve and secrets to uncover with Murders at Karlov Manor. Your eye to detail and detective skills are still needed. In addition to playing the new set, there are 12 puzzles and 1 meta puzzle to solve. You can find your first puzzle in the pre-release kit and then discover more in products like Play Boosters and the bundle. Go to ravnicadetectiveagency.com for more puzzles and the final meta puzzle. And if you feel like attending a party less deadly than the one at Karlov Manor, you can play early at your local game store for pre-release starting the weekend of February 2nd, on Arena February 6th, and available everywhere February 9th. If you want even more tantalizing clues and details about the murders at Karlov Manor, story episodes are currently rolling out. Keep a sharp eye out for any further clues, detectives. Ravnica is still counting on you to solve the remaining puzzles.